Hello everyone, Come Clean here. It's actually been 10 years since Skylanders Spyro's Adventure was released and basically started a genre of its own. Since many gamers were so young when they first tried the game, it's easy to forget how groundbreaking the game was and how brilliant the control scheme still is. And what's so brilliant about it? That's what we'll be talking about in this video. I hope you enjoy it.
So, what is so important about the control scheme in a game like Skylanders Spyro's Adventure? For starters, you have 32 playable characters, which means it's important the control scheme is streamlined or the player will be easily confused and not motivated to try out new characters. Also, the first Toys to Life game ever was something new entirely, and just like for example World of Warcraft's Skylanders Spyro's Adventure was likely to be the first game ever for many players. It is therefore important to have an accessible control scheme. At the same time, you can't alienate experienced players like parents or teenagers who find the concept appealing. You therefore must also have a control scheme that is nuanced and can be approached in simple yet also creative and intuitive ways. Does Skylanders Spyro's Adventure's control scheme accomplish all this? Let's find out. We'll start off by asking the question: all Skylanders are controlled with the analog stick and the same 3 buttons. That is, however, not all the game needs to have a streamlined control scheme. All the buttons need to do the approximately same thing for all characters. Is this true for Spyro's Adventure? The primary attack for each Skylander works in slightly different ways, but they are all straightforward and easy to get the hang of. That is, however, not necessarily the case with the other 2 abilities of each Skylander. The secondary attack is not always an actual attack and more usually a gimmicky special move. Stealth Elf's stealth ability is one example, as well as Zook's bamboo wall and Prism Break's crystal shards. Yes, some are pure attacks like Spyro's ramming ability and Yieldgrun's water gun, but the secondary ability is for each character designed to be used in a more niche situation. The same is true for the third ability that varies greatly from character to character. The diversity between characters in this game is impressive, but as a new player you quickly get the basic idea of what each attack button does, and the most important part is that the main attack for each Skylander is easy to grasp. In conclusion, the control scheme is definitely streamlined. But does that necessarily mean it's accessible? A game using only 3 buttons has to be accessible, right? Not necessarily. Many fighting games use only 4 buttons, and they cannot be said to be among the easiest type of games to get into. Coincidentally, like fighting games, Skylanders Spyro's Adventure has a lot of playable characters. Like discussed in the previous section, all characters have one ability, the main attack, that you'll immediately get the basic idea of what it does, and 2 more abilities that require some experimenting. That being said, the player would want to know what any given character is all about, but just by looking at them. Here, the character design comes into play. If you're sitting with your portal with a bunch of figures next to it, you'll want to know immediately what the general plan of attack is so you can pick the right character to overcome any obstacle you stumble upon while playing. This needs to be shown in the character design itself, and in Spyro's Adventure it really does.
You'll probably assume just by looking at the characters that Flameslinger and Trigger Happy shoot things. Boomer and Dinorang throw things. And Terrafin and Slam Bam punch things in the face. This might seem like a small detail, but it's a very important part in making a game like this accessible. You don't want to pick a character that behaves in ways you didn't expect just because of poor character design.
You most likely knew before watching this video that Skylanders is an accessible franchise overall. Perhaps not from a logistic perspective, but definitely in regards to gameplay. I mentioned before that the second and third abilities all do quite different things, which could of course seem confusing, but a delicate balance is needed here. Any player must quickly get the hang of any new character they try out, but some of their abilities have to be a bit more tricky to master, or the game would be too simplified and in the end not accessible. It's important they are versatile enough to let players of various skill levels use them in different ways. That brings us to the final question. Regardless of how fun it is to put Drawbot on the portal, turn the left analog stick in a circle and hold the main attack button, it will also quickly bore all but the youngest or least experienced type of gamer. A seasoned player would need something more, something that rewards your skill, timing and strategic thinking. What can be mentioned right away is something I learned from the comment section in one of my own videos. Thank you, Ender. By tapping the main attack button twice and holding it the third time, your melee-based Skylander unleashes a different attack than what would have been performed if you had continued to mash the button. The final hit in the combo is usually slower to come out but deals more damage. We're jumping a few years into the future, but in Skylanders Imaginators you can for many characters hold the main attack button to perform a different attack. Also, for the Sensei Ambush for example, his attacks become stronger if you pause slightly mid-combo. All these mechanics are brilliant examples of how you can create a more complex control scheme without adding extra buttons or complicated inputs. In Skylanders Spyro's Adventure there are many examples of how several of the characters' movesets can be utilized in different ways. An inexperienced gamer would probably rush into the middle of things and use Jilgron's water gun to attack multiple enemies at once. A more seasoned player, however, is more likely to spend the water resource for the jetpack to strafe attack enemies or make quick getaways. As it makes it harder to turn, Spyro's flighty build is a bit tricky to use in the middle of combat and many players probably won't. However, a calculating player can benefit from the increased speed and armor as long as you are mindful of the terrain and your enemy's positions. An impatient casual player will probably not use Zook's bamboo wall much since his bazooka and mortar attacks are much more rewarding at first glance. If you want to tackle hard challenges in the best way possible though, a strategic wall placement in the middle of a fight can make a huge difference. It's also possible that a player who doesn't enjoy the technical aspects of the game might skip Skylanders like Warnado and Prism Break altogether since their main attacks are tricky to use. These players though have several Skylanders to choose from with a more accessible moveset like for example Flameslinger or Sunburn. I'm sure there are many more examples of the control scheme's nuances than those I just mentioned. I would have to say that there is something for everyone here, regardless of skill level. To sum things up, I would argue that the control scheme in Skylanders Spyro's Adventure is streamlined, accessible, and nuanced. My guess is also that this is part of what made the game so popular when it was released and is still very enjoyable to play to date for many types of gamers.
That's actually it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I upload content weekly about Skylanders and other related franchises, so if you think that's something you'll enjoy, then consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Coming Clean and I will see you next time. Take care!